The British royal family, I think, from the very, very earliest years of photography understood the important role that this young medium could play in really sending their image throughout the world, throughout the empire as it was then. Victoria and Albert certainly were great patrons of photography, and I think from those very earliest years the royal family have continued to work with photographers to sort of produce their image for the public, and certainly Beaton's pictures were very much intended to be seen by the public. The primary purpose of Beaton's photographs was to be reproduced in the press, not only the British press but also, you know, across the Commonwealth and around the world.
Cecil Beaton had a very long and distinguished career with Vogue. By the 1950s, he's one of the great fashion photographers that Vogue has, probably its greatest fashion photographer at that time, and really he does call the shots. So a lot of the day-to-day fashion photography is done by what one might call the minor stars, leaving Beaton free for these rather wonderful special assignments. If you had to think of who the greatest living British photographer at that time was, you know, Cecil Beaton would be there. And I think he has all the right attributes. He's already on very good terms with the royal family since 1939 in his first photographs. He has huge range of social connections. He's tremendously confident. In short, he's the kind of man that you would expect to do such a big occasion as the coronation. I'd be hard-pressed to think of anybody else that would do it so well, so readily, and so effectively.
The archive of Beaton's royal photographs was acquired in 1987. The whole archive was bequeathed to the museum by Cecil Beaton's secretary, Eileen Hose. In total, there are about 18,000 objects in the Beaton collection. It is huge, but that includes not only the photographs but also negatives, transparencies, and 45 huge volumes of Beaton's press cuttings, which he kept sort of from his teenage years throughout his life, right up until his death in 1980. We're really pleased to be including in the exhibition some of Beaton's contact sheets, which haven't been exhibited before, which really show the kind of subtle movements within each pose. You know, often he's giving very particular directions to the Queen or to the other royal sitters, and the contact sheets reveal his directions, and they're really fantastic objects in themselves to show. For us, they also serve as a record of the unretouched photographs. The final images, which visitors will see in the exhibition, have all been very heavily retouched, and this was a really important stage in the process of the creation of a royal portrait. Often Beaton would advise his retouchers to slim the waistlines of the sitters or perhaps remove a double chin. But these details were very important in constructing an idealised image. These aren't documentary shots. They're a much more romantic style of portraiture in which no hair is out of place and every detail is perfect. Beaton never worked alone at his royal portrait sittings. They were very elaborate events that required a crew of people to assist. For us as historians researching Beaton's work, it's been really useful to be able to interview some of the assistants who are still alive, in particular John Drysdale and Ray Harwood, who both worked with Beaton on the day of the coronation sitting at Buckingham Palace. And both Ray and John were assistants at the Vogue studios, so they worked with a number of different photographers there, primarily on fashion and portrait sittings.
Beaton was Beaton, and he was very, very much in control. At the coronation, he desperately needed us because there was a lot of work to be done, and the preparation for it took 2 days. On the third day, the Queen came in and sat down into a prepared set. We had to do a dummy run with the lighting, and no, you didn't stand there and wait for the Queen to pose and then read the lighting. By God, no chance.
I think we'd exposed film that had been previously developed to make sure it got the right exposure.
Test runs, yes.
Beaton came in, and after a very short time, they started processing through all these people. We were taking pictures as fast as you could take them, piling the slides up, and getting them out of the way, the next lot in.
Well, remember that we'd done it before. John had been on several royal shoots, and so had I. So it wasn't a question of being awed by the fact that the Queen was in the same room as you. You were very aware of the fact that you'd done this before.
We had been to Buckingham Palace before. I hardly had time to look at her. She was there, we put the film in, exposed it, as many as we could get. And then time came that she moved off and the next one moved in.
It was fine, it worked out very well. You've got to realise that John and I haven't met 60 years,
60 years, yes.
60 years ago, we worked together on the Coronation. He went his way and I went mine, and we haven't met until this afternoon. Isn't that something?